Big Bacon. Welcome back to Big Bacon's Collection. I'm your host, Big Bacon. Today we're going to take a look at the G.I. Joe Walmart exclusive Retro Fang Chopper with Pilot. Now, I actually managed to pick this up in store because at one point these things were everywhere. Like enough stock for my grandchildren to buy one each if they wanted them. For their grandchildren to buy one each if they wanted them. So without any further ado, let's get into the review here. So, with the G.I. Joe Retro Collection, at one point they actually went from manufacturing in China where they typically do to Korea. So the mold, the sculpting, and unfortunately the QC are all different than the traditional 4-inch G.I. Joe figures. That being said, taking these things out of the packaging and moving around the joints and everything, you run a big risk of snapping something. That being said, we will not be doing a full articulation check on this guy because I have yet to warm up his joints. And his elbows are really stiff, and I do not want to break him. Now, the figure itself comes with just 2 accessories. One being this rather nice looking red flight helmet. It's got that traditional looking Cobra Trooper look to it. The other one being a small sidearm. Now this thing has never been pulled out of his leg holster, so a little bit of heat to straighten up that bend on the top edge. But it looks very much shape-wise like either 1911 would be my guess. Although with the flat back and the squared off top, it could very well be a Glock. There's even a little sculpted ejection port. This thing back here is a pressure safety, so yeah, I'm going to say this is a Glock. And then we have the figure. Now, they actually molded this face mask onto the head, so it is not removable. But then they went and they sculpted great hair detail along the strapping and along the top edge of the mask. So that, I love that. A couple points here and there where the paints kind of overlap, but I'll forgive him for that. The mask does have a hose that comes down to this attachment, which just pegs into the chest armor, or the web gear. Web gear is done in this black. Has a nice textured sculpt to it. Has a second firearm sculpted in here that does not remove, and honestly, with the angle that they sculpted that, I don't see how on earth anybody would actually draw that weapon. But oh well. Got some nice red paint up here on the shoulder sections of the harness. Nicely painted silver buckle. I mean, the texture on the belts and the web gear is very nice. The actual sculpt on the breathing mask is nice. Nice silver lens. Red and silver highlights along here. The arms are really well sculpted. Little pouches, insignia holders, wrinkling to give it that fabric texture look. Communications and a watch on the gloves. Got what looks to be, back in the old days, pilots used to carry maps and such in a thigh pocket. Looks like this might be some sort of electronic alternative. Pistol sculpted in on this side. Strapping comes all the way around. Nice armored knee pad looking things. Boots are your standard black combat boots. So let's go over what articulation we can. The head is on a ball joint, but you still get some up and down with it. Even with the hose, you get a little bit of side to side, and you get tilt with this guy. I feel spoiled. His arms peg up to 90. The ball joint does come all the way around. Now the elbows, like I said, are still too stiff for me to move, so until I heat those up, that ain't happening. But they do come up to about 90. Rotation at the elbow. Rotation at the wrist. And this thing has a vertical hinge. Okay, I'm feeling really spoiled now. Same on this hand. There is a mid-torso cut behind this vest, which allows for some rotation. And just the smallest amount of crunch. Legs, kick forward that far. Kick out well beyond 90. A little bit back. We have a thigh cut for rotation. We have double jointed knees. We have boot cut articulation. The foot hinges back that far, hinges forward that far, and has a forward facing rocker in a 4-inch figure. Okay, articulation wise, with the exception of the frozen joints, this is a really nicely done figure. Let's get him geared back up, get that pistol back into his holster, get the helmet back onto his head. And there is a magical way to do this. I haven't figured it out yet, but apparently that does it. Now his peg holes are too big for traditional stands. So until I can figure out how to make him stay on that, he's just going to sit there. Now let's move on to the piece de la resistance. The Fang gyrocopter. Not a helicopter. Open canopy gyrocopter. So this is not a straight repaint, reissue of the original. This thing has actually been sculpted differently. The engine compartment is different. This front nose piece different. Even the tail is slightly shorter and has a different configuration. But it does, looking back at it, bring to mind that old Fang. So why don't we get started with looking at this thing. It's got a pivoting front cannon, has engine detail or control detail up here on the nose section, have a cockpit with a seat that you can peg a figure in, nicely sculpted control stick. Underneath we have the bomb. I do have the missiles that are supposed to mount here, but man, are those things a pain in the butt to keep in place. So until I can figure out how to make those stay, they're just sitting on a shelf. Landing skids. Nicely detailed engine to provide forward flight thrust. The blades. A very short tail with a separate enclosed rotor, but this one you cannot move like in the original one. Now some of the stickers on this are oversized. They kind of hang over where they're supposed to be. This is a great example of it. But functionally speaking, it's great. Your rotors move. This forward ball adjusts to different angles. And the figure fits in it. Now it's a gyrocopter, not a helicopter, so space-wise, it's a little more cramped than your traditional helicopter. Get your foot in there, buddy. It's okay, we're not going to judge you. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain to get into the seat. Once you do, the back peg's right into the peg. And if my elbows moved, I could actually get his hand on the joystick. But his head does clear the rotors. So all in all, it's a fairly nice looking piece. What do you say we move this up onto the shelf? And we'll call it a day. And there you have it. Another vehicle on my 4-inch show shelf. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you all next time.